And thank you everyone for joining us today. Welcome to our BYU Management Society Calgary Chapter presentation. We are delighted to have you here today to partake in this riveting session. I'm sure that you will find it very informative, very insightful, and rather inspiring. I've had the pleasure of hearing Oleks Osiyevskyy speak on a number of occasions and attended a number of presentations that he has done with the University of Calgary. He is a professor and lead researcher at the University of Calgary. I'm not going to do a long-winded introduction of Dr. Osiyevskyy. I'm going to allow him to do that because he'll certainly do a better job and include what he wants in the introduction. And so I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Osiyevskyy now. Oleks, if you'd like to open your microphone, and you are sharing your slides already, which is great. And we'll get started with your introduction.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Marina, and thank you so much for inviting me to discuss this important issue with you today. I'm looking forward to sharing some of my views about Fourth Industrial Revolution and about business. And of course, I'm looking forward to questions and answers at the end. So I am an associate professor of entrepreneurship and innovation at the Haskayne School of Business, the University of Calgary. And in my scholarship, in my consulting, in my executive training, I concentrate on helping the companies to achieve productive longevity and prosperity, to adjust successfully to changes in marketplace and technological advancements in the marketplace. Simultaneously, I am the director of Global Business Futures Initiative. It is a bold major project at University of Calgary, and the idea is to create a safe place to learn about the future of your business, about the things you have to do now in order to ensure the future, bright future of your business. My dream is to organize a major annual business forum or business leaders summit in the Rocky Mountains, somewhere in Canmore or in Banff, and to have something like a Davos in the Rocky Mountains for business leaders. And essential part of what I'm doing is studying the impact of new technologies on business practices, on business models, on in general, on the way we do business and the way we create value. I used to be a software engineer myself. My first couple of degrees were in software engineering. I started my first startup when I was a software engineer back in Ukraine. Since that time, I did lots of things, and I moved to a business school eventually. But here I am now, and I would like today to discuss with you the topic thriving in the Fourth Industrial Revolution, new economic order, finding your place, and ethical questions. And again, this topic requires a lot of discussions, and one person cannot cover it, of course, but I think I have some structure to think through these questions, to think about how to find a place for your business or for your family in the new world order, how to help your kids with getting the proper education in order to set them up for success in the future. Okay, so let's start. And again, you might notice I have a slight Ukrainian accent or pronounced Ukrainian accent, but I promise you will get used to it in a few minutes. Okay, so industrial revolutions. This is a fancy term that actually is quite meaningful. Industrial revolution is a convergence of related technologies that in a major way change the way we produce things and change the way we consume things. At the end of the day, industrial revolutions have major impact on the people's lives. We can talk about 4 industrial revolutions, and of course, right now I'm going to talk about 4th, but let's set a background about how we came here. First industrial revolution, it started with mechanization of textile production in Great Britain. So it was a convergence of a bunch of technologies from 1760s to 1830s. Things like steam engine, even water-powered engines, development of manufacturing, this was something that actually dramatically improved the living standards of people, mostly in Europe and in North America. You probably know this story that up until first industrial revolution, there was no growth in our economies. All the way through Middle Ages, pretty much you couldn't expect that your kids would live better than you do. After first industrial revolution, we got on this growth trajectory. That creates a lot of issues later on, but at the end of the day, it was the first industrial revolution. Second industrial revolution is 1870s to 1930s. This is mass production, assembly lines, electricity, globalization, standardization, air travel, even international air travel. All of this happened during this second industrial revolution. Highway systems, first mass-produced car, all of this emerged during the second industrial revolution. Third industrial revolution is all about computers and internet. So it started from 1950s and it is still ongoing. These are the technologies that substantively improved the way we manage our lives, the way we communicate. They created the modern multinational enterprise because of the advancements in information technologies. And now we can talk about fourth industrial revolution. So the term fourth industrial revolution itself was coined by a particular person, Klaus Schwab, from World Economic Forum, from Davos, around 2015, 2016. And by fourth industrial revolution, he means the convergence of cyber and physical systems. And I will talk more about what it is all about on the next slide. But also very similar terms are, for example, Industry 4.0 or smart manufacturing. So related to manufacturing, this is all this fourth industrial revolution. So what is it? Fourth industrial revolution, formally, it was originally defined as development or advent of cyber-physical systems, which means convergence of physical, social, biological, and digital worlds. It means that, well, traditionally, there was IT technologies separated from manufacturing and separated from all other aspects of our life. We had to enter data into computers would calculate something, give back the result, and we will then make decision about manufacturing or other aspects of our life. Now all of these things converge together. Cluster of technologies that conventionally are considered fourth industrial revolution are Internet of Things, which basically it is about connecting to internet every single device from coffee maker to industrial robots. Big data, artificial intelligence, augmented reality, robotics, additive manufacturing, things like 3D printing, nanotechnology, biotechnology, neurotechnology, and a couple of others that are ongoing, quantum computers. You can say ultimately, but isn't all of these things of the third industrial revolution, because it is all about computers and internet. And the thing is with these industrial revolutions is that all the next industrial revolutions are based on advancement of technologies of the prior one. So internet is essentially development of electricity, while electricity is development coming from steam engines and ability to actually translate movement of steam engine towards electric power. But once you have a critical mass of new technologies, you're getting a quantum leap, you're getting something different. And we right now are standing in front of the beginning of this fourth industrial revolution. Now, some examples that I really need to highlight that show that we are living in the new world. First, fully automated manufacturing, something that before was not possible. Right now, we have plants that are totally run by robots without humans. So factories without lights, where you don't need to have lights on any time because everything is done by robots. All these AAS, manufacturing as service, platform as service, infrastructure as service, software as service. All of these things are new models, new business models that are characteristic for the fourth industrial revolution. On the consumer side, well, we probably all have bad experience with talking to online chat bots every time we try to contact our bank or our, for example, internet provider. But at the end of the day, they get better and better. And sooner or later, they will be able to solve most of the customers' problems. It is today that I immediately say, get me a live operator because I have some sophisticated, everything simple I can do myself. But later on, the chatbot will be able to solve most of my problems itself. This is something that was not imaginable even in 1960s, 1970s, when we started talking about artificial intelligence. Now, let's get to first major point that I would like to make during this presentation. And this first major point is new economic order. Of course, I work with a lot of companies and I talk with a lot of practitioners trying to understand what the world will look like after COVID-19. We are all tired of these lockdowns, and even in my family, we actually already are feeling the impact of COVID-19. Back in Ukraine, for example, my parents, I really don't know how to help them. But sooner or later, COVID-19 will disappear, and we will have the new world order without COVID-19. How will it look like? Well, first thing first, of course, global trade is in danger. Like, this is a no-brainer. Where whoever becomes the next president of the United States, the global trade will not be as it was before. United States is losing its major alliances, for example, Canada and European Union, alliances that were forged during World War II when our soldiers were fighting together. Now it is falling apart. And of course, United States engages a lot with battles with imaginary adversaries like China, for example. But at the end of the day, of course, global trade is in danger. But this time it is different. I believe that the global trade will change substantively after COVID-19, but not because of COVID-19. COVID-19 simply accelerated the trends for localization of production and orientation on local markets that were ongoing because of the fourth industrial revolution. So we in Canada already realized that, for example, we cannot rely on major medical supplies on our partners. We need to produce everything internally just in case. But on the other hand, it is not COVID that forces us. It is something else. This something else is fourth industrial revolution, or particularly its manufacturing side, production side, which is Industry 4.0. Let's think about it. We have a bunch of convergent technologies in manufacturing, things like intelligent manufacturing, cloud computing, additive manufacturing, which is, for example, 3D printing, when you can produce everything on the spot. Industrial Internet of Things, so collecting information from all your industrial robots and feeding it into the predictive analytics system that optimizes your production. All of these technologies, after convergence, lead to a couple of additional valuable things in manufacturing. Things like flexibility, you can adjust your manufacturing quite fast. Speed to market, you can implement the things much faster than before. Efficiency and reliability of manufacturing, because ultimately you are removing the human error and you are improving, optimizing, you are removing the bounded rationality of human decision makers, and you are letting the computers drive the manufacturing. It has pluses and minuses, but at the end of the day, it makes you much more efficient, much more reliable, and much fast. Taken together, this leads to a couple of interesting things. First is the phenomenon of mass customization. Mass customization is, generally speaking, contradiction in terms. Either you are doing something mass produced in masses, but the same thing, or you are doing something customized. But right now we can talk about mass customization when every customer gets what he or she wants rather than the same gadget that you produce for everyone. And mass customization right now is making major advancements from fashion items all until artificially created organs or tissues that are needed in healthcare. So mass customization plus local production and local market orientation. Let me give you an example of Zara, a known fashion brand. What is the main competitive advantage of Zara in European Union? The thing is that if most brands have 6 months lag between when a designer notices a new need and when their fashion items get into the stores, on the shelves of the stores, Zara, by localization of production, was able to reduce this lag to 3 weeks or even 2 weeks in some cases. So they can respond to market changes much faster than everyone else. And because of that, they can charge their customers a little bit more to compensate for additional costs of not producing the stuff in China. We are getting to this new world order, and this new world order is not caused by nationalistic sentiments or anti-globalization movements. It is the Industry 4.0 that would allow us to produce the things locally. At the end of the day, if your plant, which assembles, for example, laptops, is fully run by robots, you really don't care about what is the difference in salaries of factory floor workers in China versus Canada, because you will not have those factory floor workers anyway. You can produce the stuff in Canada. Of course, we will start with medical equipment, masks, and so on, but ultimately it will expand further and further. So my prediction is that conventional world order, economic world order, as it is done right now, when we produce things somewhere in Southeast Asia, or things are designed in North America or in Europe, and then these things get produced in Southeast Asia in masses, and then shipped over the world in these big container ships, this will be something of the past. Instead, we are moving more towards localization of production and orientation on local markets across the world. Again, there is no good reason anymore to produce things in China and get them to Canada. If you can produce things in Canada and get them to market faster, you will have a competitive advantage thanks to that. Yes, we will start with fashion. We will start with, for example, strategically important medical equipment, but later this localization of production will spread across the industries. Probably the only thing that you will not be able to localize is production of oil. So oil will still be transported across the globe because it has to be extracted in a particular parts in the world and then transported elsewhere. Now, so I discussed Industry 4.0 and production. Let's also talk about what happens in consumption, in demand. Major trends are changing consumer expectations and enhancement of products and services. Consumer expectations. Consumers more and more require customized things for them. So mass customization will be the way to produce in the future. Every person will be able to get what they particularly need. The most obvious thing, for example, I still buy golf clubs of the standard length, and then I have to go and customize them to my length in order to play golf. I will not have to do it. I believe 5 years down the road, I will be able to get the set of clubs just for me at the same price as the set of clubs of the standard lengths. Also, consumers expect more and more transparency. All this green movement or ethical movement, these are not fads. They are here to stay. And we have to understand that we have to think about how IT technologies can help us to increase the transparency, ethical practices, and engage our consumers in co-creation of products with us. Now, product and service enhancement. First thing that you have to think about here is Internet of Things. Is there a way to connect your product to internet so that it can be improved? You can upload the new things on your product, and also you can get the data from the customers that can help to serve them better. I recently renovated my house, and I already installed that Nest smart thermostat that is connected to internet, and it is absolutely amazing. Now I'm buying, for example, a heater for my basement. I'm looking for something that is internet enabled so that I can turn it on and off using my phone. Another thing that I have to talk about here is unbundling and disintermediation. This is something that is here to stay. Let's imagine, for example, you need to get a plumber to your house in order to fix something. Right now, you're buying the whole bundle with this plumber. You're paying for his or her truck, you're paying for his or her idle time, you're paying for his or her tools, you're paying for his or her education, even though all you need is a particular service that can be done maybe in 5 minutes and you can do if somebody can guide you. Is there a way to unbundle this? Is there a way to get just a service from a plumber, his or her expertise, rather than get the whole thing? And actually, there are ways to do it. So maybe a plumber can use a sophisticated IT system on the cell phone where they will guide you towards, maybe there is some small fix that has to be done, and a licensed plumber can help you to do that over 15 minutes and get paid just for their expertise, not for the whole trip across the city to you and depreciation of their tools and other things. The same will happen in education, for example. Right now, when you pay for kids' education or when you pay for your own education, you pay for the whole bundle that the university offers: libraries, gyms, facilities, research. But all you need is actually the expertise of a professor to guide you to learn some new thing that you're trying to learn. It will be unbundled. Those massive open online courses, which are essentially disruptive innovation, unbundling the education. Right now, they are not gaining enough traction, but they will. That's the world of fourth industrial revolution. Impact on business practices. So this new world order, but how exactly it will affect businesses and how it can affect your business? Well, first, there will be lots of change in the way we organize our business models. Things like asset-light platforms, Uber that doesn't own cars, or Airbnb that does not own any hotels or properties for rent, they are here to stay and they will dominate our industries. Second, freemium business models. This is something coming from fourth industrial revolution. Freemium business model means that most of your customers will get your service for free and only a small percentage of customers will pay for extra services. And this will be enough to pay for everyone. Before, in 1960s, 1970s, you could not expect that. You cannot go to Toyota and say, give me, or Toyota cannot give away Toyota Corollas, for example, for free, and then getting all the benefit from charging a lot for Toyota Camrys. In internet, in the fourth industrial revolution, it is totally possible. Mass customization and local manufacturing, we already discussed. Again, localization of supply chains, the global world order will be local, not because of nationalistic sentiments and against globalization movement, but rather it is natural. The smart manufacturing allows you to efficiently produce things anywhere in the world. It won't happen overnight, but this is going to be here to stay. For that matter, actually, when thinking a lot about how China can reinvent their business model, their whole economic model, they really have to concentrate on local market. Because at the end of the day, we cannot expect that people from North America and Europe will rely on China for most of their goods. Instead, goods will be produced locally. But China has 2 billion people. They have huge local markets to develop. One more thing. Software as service, manufacturing as service, infrastructure as service. This all leads to ease of scaling up the business. I remember 15 years ago when I started my startup, it was online platform. I had to buy a server. I had to get a wire with internet for this server. I had to administer my server, and I had to invest $5,000 just in order to set everything up. Now all I have to do is go to Amazon's website, get Amazon Web Services account, and I get my server up and running. This is an example of infrastructure as service. This reduces the barriers for entry into any industry. Other changes in business practices. So COVID showed us that a lot of things can be done at home. Whether we like it or not, this permanent remote work is here to stay. The downtowns in major cities are not likely to get crowds as they used to. And the houses in suburbia are likely to get more and more expensive because people will be able to work more and more from homes, whether we like it or not. Also, Industry 4.0 allows you to get a diverse global workforce. Right now in, for example, Calgary, not too many people hire software developers. You can get software developers from Ukraine, from Russia, from Belarus, from Serbia. You can pay them a little bit less, but they will still be really well off because of cost of living in those countries. At the same time, here you can have business analysts and software architects, project managers, and all of this will allow you to scale up almost overnight once you need more software developed done. Last thing, gig economy with all its pluses and minuses. It is going to be here to stay. That unbundling, or when you get a service, when you don't buy a car anymore, you just get a service from Uber for getting you from point A to point B. But there is something that we have to really think about here, because traditionally artificial intelligence had to be a servant to people. Artificial intelligence had to improve our decision-making capabilities. But within gig economy, it is artificial intelligence that actually makes the decision for us. It is the artificial intelligence that controls or manages the Amazon's employees within their warehouses. It is the artificial intelligence that manages the allocation of drivers and riders on Uber platform. And it is getting a little bit scary, actually. So instead of being servant, now artificial intelligence algorithm becomes a master. But this is going to be here for a long time, and we have to learn how to live with it and how to manage this beast that we don't fully understand yet. Now, challenges. As I am talking to business people, as I'm working on consulting or executive training, I hear a lot of complaints, sometimes open, sometimes they are implied, but at the end of the day, how to deal with this rapid pace of innovation in your industry or in general in the economy, how to handle the disruption of existing paradigms, existing technologies, existing business models, how to make sense. Plus, you have lots of information. If you are a CEO of a large company, probably every day somebody would come to you and say, this new thing can disrupt our whole industry. What can you do about it? Well, there are opportunities as well. As I already said, low barriers to capital market. There are, thanks to those infrastructure as service, software as service, even manufacturing as service. So you basically can order manufacturing at home and it will be 3D printed for you, or it can be produced for you quite cheaply. You have lower barriers to capital and market. You can improve your product and service with digital things that create a lot of value for the customer. And finally, if you're open to new ideas, you can actually develop your business well. But on the other hand, this is just broad statements of a business professor. What exactly can you do right now? What exactly, how even to think about fourth industrial revolution and how even to think about finding your place? Well, generally speaking, there are lots of quite good books that talks about what's your digital business model or building the Internet of Things, how exactly to incorporate some of the models into some of the new technologies into your business model. And those books are really great and you have to look at them. But let me give you a more general way I think about incorporating new technologies into strategic management and strategic planning. When I conduct workshops in companies, I always ask them to do the first thing. Keep an eye on the emerging technologies. It is actually a fun thing to do, so you don't even have to pay additional to your people. You will have a lot of volunteers for keeping an eye on emerging technologies in your industry. There are a lot of providers of information about new technologies. For example, Gartner Institute is an institute that looks for all the technologies that are out there and have the potential to change the business. This is Gartner chart. You can Google it. It is freely available. Last time I was talking about Gartner chart was 2019 in my class. Now it is 2020, and I see a lot of new technologies that I never heard about. There is no excuse for not looking at least at them. So keep an eye on emerging technologies. Gartner right now talks about Internet of Behaviors, distributed cloud, other things. Forbes, other popular business press, they talk about it a lot. But at the end of the day, I usually rely on Gartner because this is where I usually start strategy sessions or entrepreneurial thinking sessions. I ask participants to pick a couple of technologies and then to introduce it to the room, to discuss the technology, for example, adaptive machine learning or generative adversarial networks. Actually, that's a little bit older technology. But at the end of the day, keep an eye on technologies. Then think about these technologies with respect to, well, let's say it other way. You have to embed technological opportunity analysis into your annual planning cycle. So as a part of strategic sessions, talk about what is emerging in the world and talk about how it can be used in your company. And make no mistake here, as an engineer, I used to make this mistake before. The idea was build it and people will come. And then it happened that I built it and not too many people came, until I learned that people don't come for a technology. Technology doesn't create value in itself. The value is created only when the technology solves new customer problems, solves existing customer problems better, or makes you more efficient as a company. So analyze every technology from a perspective of, does it create an opportunity for us to have more customers, to serve existing customers better, or to make ourselves more efficient? Particularly important here, frame of mind. Discuss what if this is an opportunity. You have to have the opportunity framing rather than a threat framing. Let's give you an example. A typical bank in European Union, they are discussing fintech startups in financial technologies. And usually they discuss these startups from a perspective of they are eating up our market share. This is the wrong approach. You are treating them as a threat, and as a threat, all you are trying to do is limit your losses. You try to limit your downside. Opportunity framing allows you to not think too much about a threat, but rather to think about how to capture the upside. So every technology, basically what we do even with my MBA students in entrepreneurial thinking class, every student introduces a technology. So for example, augmented reality technology. And then they talk about what kind of problems this technology can solve in my industry, and how can we leverage those opportunities in my particular company. And we are already getting implementable projects out of this session. Imagine if you have this introduced in your planning cycle, and this can be actually quite a fun part of your annual planning cycle. Rather than discussing just budgets, for example, or KPIs, start with what are the new things that we can introduce into our business. But very pragmatically, things, again, technology doesn't create value in itself. Technology creates value only if it gets translated to product innovations or process innovations. Is there a way to actually solve problems with this technology? One of the ways, again, I usually implement it is through opportunity-based growth management. So we introduce the annual planning cycle on the basis of, rather than looking at what we did in the last year, adding 10% and assuming that this is our budget for the next year, we start from scratch. We start from thinking about opportunities in the marketplace that we can chase, and then from these opportunities, we get towards planning and choosing optimizing. All these nuts and bolts of technologies, they fit straight into scanning phase of opportunity-based growth management. Again, the critical issue here is how exactly technology can help you with growth. Is it going to help you with getting new products, new services, new customers, sell more to existing customers, increase price, or is it allowing you to improve your profitability by reducing your costs? And again, this is quite a general discussion. And usually when we take a particular technology, we have to think about how exactly this particular technology can get implemented in business. And right here, I have my whiteboard where I'm putting together value chain and thinking about how, for example, artificial intelligence in your particular industry can affect value chain in your industry. But the general frame of mind is, what are the opportunities that might emerge from technology solving problems for our business or for our customers? Now, the last part, and because I really would like to have some discussion, and the last part of my talk about Industry 4.0 or Fourth Industrial Revolution and business in general is ethical considerations, something that we should never forget about, because it actually creates, it is a Pandora box that creates lots and lots of problems that we have to think about right now. You probably know that there was Karl Marx, a creator of the word capitalism. And Karl Marx always assumed that technology emerges itself. It is not the entrepreneurs who bring technology to life, but rather the technology is something exogenous. It is something given to our system. And this technology changes all the industries, changes the economy, changes the class struggle. So introduction of, for example, first industrial revolution and manufacturing and introduction of steam engine, it created the whole new class of laborers. And at the same time, this technology in itself changed the distribution of money in the society. But this is where Karl Marx is not exactly right. The technology is brought to life by entrepreneurs. And to a large extent, these entrepreneurs, these business leaders, entrepreneurs is not just startup founders, it is also corporate entrepreneurs who introduce this technology in established companies or in established industries. These entrepreneurs have the responsibility to shape the technological trajectory. That's why it is so important. That's why I'm actually even discussing this ethical consideration at the end. But this is something that we probably even have to start every discussion of the technology in our company. On the one hand, as all prior industrial revolutions, Fourth Industrial Revolution, this cluster of technologies bring a lot of optimism for substantial improvement of human life. They can give us much more freedom and opportunities to live the lives as we wanted. For example, if robots make us much more productive, this will allow us to get more leisure time with our families and to work less. If, for example, simultaneously, let's say it like that, artificial intelligence, if I have to apply artificial intelligence in any sphere of human activity, I would start with healthcare. Precision health is using big data, using machine learning in healthcare. It already gives marvelous results. Instead of saying that, for example, aspirin on average reduces the fever in patients, the computer can actually say how will aspirin affect your particular body. Or the computer can say, can detect cancer early on, can develop the best protocols for treating cancer patients that are tailored to this particular patient. This is something that that was not possible before. Now it is possible. One of the major things that I'm working on right now is I'm developing the innovation and entrepreneurship specialization in precision health program in Haskayne School of Medicine, because I really want to help innovators within healthcare who are doing artificial intelligence in healthcare to implement their ideas. So this is definitely adds a lot of optimism. It might substantively improve the human conditions. Simultaneously, Fourth Industrial Revolution can get us higher levels of education. Because of online education, a lot of people who could not get education otherwise can actually now get it. Safe, engaging jobs, interesting jobs. So the jobs that are, for example, risky can be given away to robots and people can concentrate on something that might be meaningful. And overall rising of living standards, as all prior industrial revolutions have shown, industrial revolution improves everyone's lives. Yes, sometimes workers have to relocate from one industry to another, but at the end of the day, everyone gets better off. At the same time, the same industrial revolution technologies create a lot of fears. Inequality and social tensions is the most obvious one, because the fruits of this industrial revolution are not likely to be equally distributed. And I have to make an acknowledgement here. So I was born in Soviet Union and I saw that socialism does not work. I am deeply skeptical about all left ideas, but this is the idea coming mostly from left-wing thinkers that I agree with. So if we cannot make sure that the benefits of Fourth Industrial Revolution are distributed more or less equally, if we are getting monopoly power and concentration of wealth and power in a small number of people, in small number of hands, this actually might create social tensions. The whole fabric of society might collapse. If you have 1% of multi-billionaires and everyone else tries to survive, this type of society simply cannot sustain for a long time. And the revolution will come and nobody needs this revolution. Unemployment, insecurity, a lot of people, even university professors, we might lose our jobs. In the long run, it will be better, but how to make sure that this transition happens properly? Finally, collapsing identities, communities, geopolitical destabilization. Even, let's look at Facebook. Facebook helps in polarizing the society. Facebook helps in, well, essentially collapsing identities and communities. We don't because of the artificial, it is not that Facebook is root of evil, it is artificial intelligence that learns about our behavior and learns about what kind of news we want to read. And it feeds us only those news that we want to read rather than news that would challenge our thinking. All of these are fears of fourth industrial revolution. And right now we are at crossroads. As entrepreneurs, we really have to think about how to make sure that whatever innovations we implement are creating more free and more and better world for everyone. Unfortunately, here I am a little bit skeptical. If I feel that without deliberate efforts to direct the development of our economies towards fourth industrial revolution in themselves, they can lead to monopoly power and concentration of power in a few hands. We have to think through it. We have to think about how to make sure that everyone benefits. And again, for a person who is very right-wing oriented, you will not see these comments too often, but I frankly believe in it. And this gets me to the end of my presentation, and I would hand it over to the host in order to talk about some questions.
Thank you so much, Oleks. That was a fantastic presentation, and we're really very, very appreciative of your insights, your expertise, and your future forward thinking that's grounded in research and of course also in an understanding of what's ahead of us, what's here now and what's ahead of us. There are some questions that have come in, but I'm going to open the floor first and allow anybody who has a pressing question in the audience. If there's someone who has a question and you'd like to ask the question directly, you're welcome to. Otherwise, I will move to some of the questions that have come in and ask them.
This is Ron.
Ron, yes, please.
How quickly would you anticipate this to really come to full fruition?
Okay, every revolution happened. Next revolution happened faster than before. So, and right now, COVID accelerated a bunch of things that would take years to come. So I believe the economy 10 years down the road will be totally different. I am not sure, for example, if I will be able to retire as a university professor 25 years down the road. Well, I personally am not worried about it because I think there are other ways a university professor can create value. But I believe it is here to stay. And because of COVID, we will see the first major changes in a few years already. We will start with production things locally. We will start producing our own masks in Canada. We will get more manufacturing, for example, in Alberta. 5 to 10 years, first changes, 20 years down the road will be full change of the economy.
In 20 years?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
It just accelerates. It is unfair to say that that our time is the time of change and our parents' time was more stable. They went through their own revolutions before. The pace of change is not accelerating, but we will get the results really soon.
Very good, thank you. Other questions? Other questions from the audience?
Larry.
If anyone would just, Larry, if you'd like to ask that question.
Sure, thank you for this presentation, by the way. You're speaking so fast, I don't think I caught it all, but you've obviously thought through all of these things very well. And thank you for including the moral parts at the end. I got back towards the middle of your presentation. My question is, if someone has a good idea, a new technology or something like that they've invented, and you said you can't just wait for the better mousetrap for people to come to you. You have to go to them. How would you implement a good technology that you've thought up out in the world?
Well, I can give an example in healthcare, in precision health, because this is something that I'm working a lot right now. You can either start your own startup or you can get the idea to public healthcare system. And depending on so the easiest way is to get to public healthcare system if your idea matches the strategy of Alberta Health Services, for example. So, but if you come with something that is not in line with what AHS is doing right now, and they are politically motivated, so they have limited budget and they have to work on a couple of objectives, they cannot deviate. You can always start a startup. What I see changes in Calgary in last 5 years. This is the emergence of all this entrepreneurship ecosystem. We have an incubator or accelerator on every corner of the city apparently right now. Maybe we have too many of them. But basically you can take your idea and you can get to professionals with this idea who will help you to commercialize it. I'm working with Creative Destruction Lab Rockies. So companies that come out of university or not out of university that have a chance to disrupt the energy industry or agriculture, they will get a lot of support without asking for an equity yet. But also you have to act entrepreneurial yourself. A lot of people, well, we have lots of brilliant ideas, but it also takes time and efforts and commitments to implement. So I see a lot of examples of people doing things. But probably this is a more general question about how to implement this idea. It probably really requires more longer discussion about how to build a business case for your idea and then whom to pitch your idea to.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Other questions? Yes, Stephen.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, we're good.
Stephen. You know, emerging technology, things are changing at a very rapid pace. We spend a lot of time going to school, learning a trade, becoming proficient in that trade, and then technology comes along and all of a sudden the machine is able to do it more efficiently than we do. And some of us, you know, find ourselves out of work, even in high-paying jobs, low-paying jobs. You know, at McDonald's, you've got the automatic kiosk, which sort of takes away jobs. How do we react to being replaced by technology? How does that impact us?
This is one of the major downsides of industrial revolutions. There will be winners, and usually these winners are really concentrated, like just only a couple of companies, and everyone else will have to readjust. Let me give you the way. So traditional answer is the following. Huge safety net for everyone. And as we are getting richer and richer, thanks to technologies, some of this additional growth has to come to support people who are left out of jobs and retraining people for new things. So this is the traditional answer. I agree that we have to do it. I just believe that it will not work enough for everyone. So at this stage, we cannot take all oil and gas workers in Alberta and make them coders, for example, make software developers out of them. And we really don't need so many software developers anyway. I believe we really have to think here on individual level. And I can give only my own example. I'm thinking a lot about what will happen if there are no jobs for university professors. And because of that, I'm thinking about what are other things that I can do in my life in order to create value. At the end of the day, it is all about make yourself useful to somebody and then people will pay you. Whom else I can be useful to? Should I write books? Should I do consulting? Should I do training? And I understand that there are some skills that are still valuable in whatever I'm doing. So I don't have a perfect answer. Government definitely has to get in, and that's why we need taxes in order to make sure that some of the newly created wealth gets back to people to support them, even needed up until retirement, because some of people will not be able to retrain or to get a new profession. But also people have to take their own responsibility for their life and see what else can they do. So be useful to somebody. It is not the best time to talk about it, for example, in Alberta to oil and gas people. but I really don't have another answer.
Yeah, we've seen lots of people in Alberta that are out of work and are in that exact situation.
Well, we also have to understand a lot of them, for example, finished only high school and started making lots of money in Fort McMurray. There is nothing wrong about it, but they didn't develop the transferable skills that can be used anywhere else except for oil and gas production. And by the way, I still think that we should have as much oil production as possible, because if we don't do it, some other countries will still produce oil. Oil will still be needed, but we have to make sure that we produce ethical oil that supports the whole world. But also individual responsibility here is as well.
Yeah.
That's a tough question, actually.
Yeah, for
Thank
sure.
you.
It's tough.
Sam, did you have a question? I saw that you popped onto the screen.
Yeah, I did.
Yes, go
Okay,
ahead.
so this is, I guess, a little bit less business related and more of like, because you've touched on government. So just to the capacity of the nature of government and how do you expect that to change, especially with like international governance? How do you see like aid going? Like right now, of course, most countries, the wealthy countries at least, have tightened their purse strings because of the pandemic. But how do you see that moving forward in the future?
Well, I believe that there are a lot of problems that can be solved only by collaboration of all countries. Climate change, poverty, there is no excuse for people to die from hunger these days while so much wealth is created worldwide. But also I'm very skeptical about human nature. I want to be an optimist, but I don't believe that we will be able to make it work. International law doesn't have police officers to enforce it. So the countries will do essentially whatever they want to do. We do need international collaboration. We do need to make sure that changes. Let's imagine if nobody needs oil anymore because of the fourth industrial revolution, we have new renewable sources of energy and oil is not needed. Canada will be able to reinvent itself and Alberta will reinvent itself. But there are lots of countries that actually will not. And I expect lots of bad things happening in those countries and in those regions. Is there a way to make sure that this transition happens smoothly is something that we have to start thinking about right now. And this is where we need international collaboration, which will be win-win for everyone because nobody needs destabilized world or destabilized regions. It will hurt everyone. You know, I come from Ukraine and I see that when there were tensions, we still have major issues with our northern neighbor back in Ukraine. The global security system didn't work. Essentially, strong countries can do whatever they want. I don't see a reason why this will change. We have to do as much as we can. And there are some things that we pragmatically can do. For example, making sure that if oil producing countries cannot produce oil, they still have something to do. But climate change, for example, I don't believe that we will be able to fight it simply because we have competing interests and we will not have enough coalition of countries for that.
Okay.
But we will see.
Perhaps it comes down to what the motivation of the countries will be in terms of that collaboration or the aid, the assistance for others. What would motivate them? What would inspire them?
Correct. But also I can say that as countries get richer, they start thinking more and more about climate. So right now, the major issues with CO2 are emissions from China and India, for example, increasing emissions from China and India. But I can say for sure that once those countries become richer, people will start caring much more about having smog in Shanghai, for example. No developed nation would allow their major city, for example, to struggle because of smog. So it might actually get solved in itself. Some problems might be solved. But global governance, I really don't believe that it will happen. Regardless of who will get elected in the United States in a few hours or whenever they are finishing their elections.
Yes, it's momentarily. We have about 5 more minutes. I will ask a question that has been brought to us here. A good time to change career and switching industry. What guidance might you give to someone who may recognize that they're their career path or the industry that they've been in may not have a long-term prospect for them. What sort of guidance might you give them?
I see. Okay, so once it was 2009, I was back in Ukraine and I was head of strategic planning department for insurance company. And it was 2008, 2009 global financial crisis that hit Ukraine. And my insurance company didn't need strategic planning anymore. All they needed was salespeople to get any sales at all. And I lost my job at that moment, but I didn't care that much because I found some consulting thing. But since that time, I promised myself, whatever I am doing, I have to clearly see that I create value to somebody, that I am useful to somebody. If I am useful to somebody, not just to bureaucratic system that needed my strategic plans, but I had to be useful, I had to create value for somebody. Then I was able to monetize it, whether it's through consulting, whether it's through teaching, education, or any other engagement. Think about where you can be useful to other people. I will not say that it has to be IT, but probably at this stage for the next 10 years, we will still need as many software business analysts, software architects, and developers as possible. But sooner or later, even this bubble will collapse. We will not need that many. We will need business analysts who can link together business problem with software solution and give assignment to software developers. But at this stage, software is still a safe bet. But I would ask, how can you create value? And if you're creating value, you will find a way to monetize it. This is essentially what entrepreneurship is all about. Find a problem, get a solution, and then try to monetize it. Sometimes you cannot monetize it through a commercial enterprise. Sometimes you might have to have a social enterprise, or maybe even non-profit, or maybe even a government entity. But make sure that you solve real problems. At this stage, IT is good. At this stage, for example, mathematics or machine learning is really good because there are so many things where machine learning can be used. With time, we will have overproduction of these people and you will have to think about something else. But how can you make yourself useful? It's just...
It's all about the value that you bring to the market. Yes. Very good.
Correct.
Thank you. Excellent.
Correct.
I am conscious of a hard stop for us at 1 p.m. and we're just a minute away from that. So I'm going to close our Zoom meeting today and thank you again, Professor Osiyevskyy. Thank you so much, Oleks. And I will indicate that we have recorded the session. We are going to send it out to everyone who is on our distribution list with a link to the YouTube channel that you can plug into in order to revisit this very enlightening and helpful seminar that we've had today. Professor Osiyevskyy, if you would be so kind, if it is suitable, I know that a couple of people had some more questions. If there's a way that they can reach you, if we'd be able to put your contact information in the communication that we send out.
So first, absolutely, and I would be able to discuss other things as well. So I would be more than happy, send me emails. Second, we will have the recording. Larry, sorry for being fast. This is how I'm thinking. So sometimes I have to deliberately slow down, but it doesn't always work. But we will have the recording and I will have my slides shared as well. So my email, slides, and the recording. So if you would like to ask me a question or maybe engage with Global Business Futures Initiative, thinking about the future of business, please, I am always open.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being open to that.
Thank you. Very enlightening.
Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate your participation and being a part of this today. And look forward to our next session, which is the 24th of November, Tuesday, the 24th of November. Please mark it in your calendars now. It will be 12 p.m. until 1 p.m. So over the lunch hour on Tuesday, the 24th. And a wonderful segue into that topic, because we're going to be talking about national strategies for Canada moving forward past the pandemic and related to this fourth generation of the Industrial Revolution and what it means for Canada and planning our future forward on a national scale. So I look forward to seeing everyone at that session, Tuesday, the 24th of November. Thank you again, Professor Osiyevskyy, and thank you all for joining in and participating. Have a great day and great rest of the week.
Super.
Thank you.
Thanks. Excellent. Okay.